Yeah, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, all of you.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Well, we were talking about the poem When Lilacs Last in the Dooryard Bloom. Now, lilacs are symbols of love, and they are purple in color and they are heart-shaped. So in many of the cultures, they are used as symbols of love as well as resurrection. So Walt Whitman, when he begins the poem talking about the lilacs, okay, he brings in the occasion, the context in which the lilacs are chosen. That is the death of President Lincoln, the assassination of President Lincoln. Now, he mourns the powerful Western fallen star. This is another, symbol. I think some of you could open the, sorry, you don't have the text with you. Do you have the text? So just a second. Yesterday, one of you read it out. Yeah. Now, when lilacs last in the dooryard bloom and the great star early drooping is setting down in the western sky in the night, I mourned and yet shall mourn the ever-returning spring. Ever-returning spring, Trinity, sure to me you bring. Now, the returning spring brings in the Trinity. What is Trinity? The three symbols: lilac blooming, perennial, and drooping star in the west, and thought of him I love. These are the three. Now, the star, then the thought of him I love, that is President Lincoln, and also the lilacs. These are the three things which form the Trinity. And stanzas 2 and 3, where he talks about the black murk in the tearful night, because he is deeply affected by, the gloom that Lincoln's death has spread, and he is powerless and helpless because the cloud around him will not free my soul. Now there he says, well, just a second. With every leaf a miracle, and from this bush in the dooryard, with delicate colored blossoms and heart-shaped leaves of rich green, a sprig with its flower I break. Lilac bush, and from that the speaker breaks a sprig. And then here another symbol is introduced. What is the symbol? The song of the bird. In the swamp, in secluded recesses, a shy and hidden bird is warbling a song. Solitary the thrush. Thrush is the bird. The hermit, withdrawn to himself, avoiding the settlements, sings by himself a song. Song of the bleeding throat, death's outlet, song of life. For well, dear brother, I know, if thou wast not granted to sing, thou wouldst surely die. So, this is the song of the bird is death's outlet. The bird would die if it doesn't give vent or expression to its feeling. Now, the feeling here is not a happy feeling or a joyous feeling, but a feeling of sadness, an intense gloom because of the death of President Lincoln. Fifth one, over the breast of the sprig, Spring, the land amid cities, amid lanes, through old woods, where lately the violets peep from the ground, spotting the grey debris. Debris means ruin, not debris, debris. Amid the grass in the fields, each side of the lanes, passing the endless grass, passing the yellow speared wheat, every grain from its shroud in the dark brown fields uprisen. Passing the apple tree, blows of white and pink in the orchards, carrying a corpse to where it shall rest in the grave. Night and day journeys a coffin. Now, from the spring and lilac to a description of the funeral train. Now, look at the words, carrying a corpse. Corpse means the dead body. Where it shall rest in the grave. Where is the coffin going to? Do you remember what I said yesterday? From Washington, it is going to?
Illinois.
Good, Illinois, Springfield. So, and to rest in the grave, night and day journeys the coffin. So, now, can anyone read this for me? Somebody who answered just now, is it Shyam Sundar or?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Can you read Shyam Sundar?
Sure, sir. The first section of the poem introduced the three principal symbols of the poem: the lilac, the star, and the thrush bird. Leitmotifs, as in music, they are woven into a poetic and a dramatic pattern. The meaning of Whitman's symbols is neither fixed nor constant. The star Venus is identified with Lincoln generally, but it also represents the poet's grief for the dead. Lilacs, which are associated with spring, are a symbol of resurrection. Its heart-shaped leaves symbolize love. Easter April, the time of Lincoln's assassination, lilacs in some Eastern traditions symbolize love. The purple color of the lilac, indicating the passion of the crucifixion, is highly suggestive of the violence of Lincoln's death. The bird is the symbol of reconciliation with death, and its song is the soul's voice.
Thank you, Shyam Sundar. Now,
Thank you, sir.
just focus on these symbols, okay? The lilac, the star, and the thrush. They are the leitmotifs. Now, leitmotifs are either in music or in literature, a set of images or, characters or, any object, okay? Or a mood that constantly appears and reappears throughout the work. That is called a leitmotif. Okay? Motif, not motive. Motif is a pattern. Leitmotif is a pattern which you can find over and over. A pattern actually means something that appears frequently, right? So what is the leitmotif here? The lilac, the star, and the bird. Now, there is a dramatic pattern. What is a dramatic pattern? Meaning, one interacts with another. When you are reading literature or when you are listening to music, understand this concept of drama. Dramatic, something becomes dramatic when there is a conflict or when there is a kind of an interaction between things which are in opposition, okay, to one another. Now, so now the star represents, okay, Lincoln, but the star also represents poet's grief. Lilacs are associated with spring and resurrection. And lilacs also are symbols of love. And the springtime, the other day I was talking about it, Easter time is the time of, April is when the Easter is celebrated. So Easter and April and spring, they all point to, a resurrection. So the purple color of the lilacs also is a liturgical color. Now, liturgical color means the colors have significance in the, in the church liturgy, meaning green, purple, black, and white. Now, these liturgical colors. So, purple color is a color of resurrection. So, Easter on the resurrection during the Lent, okay, and resurrection time, that is the Easter time, the clergy wear a purple stole. Stole is, you all know what a stole is. Stole is what a priest wears, okay, over a surplice. Surplice is the loose-fitting upper part of the church, the priest's attire. Cassock, surplice, stole. Okay, cassock, surplice, stole. So the bird is a symbol of reconciliation with death, meaning you cannot continuously wallow in grief. There has to be some kind of a reconciliation, coming to terms with one's own grief. So the song of the bird does that function. Okay. Now, so the emotional drama, okay, is built around a symbolic framework, and the continual recurrence of the spring season symbolizes the cycle of life and death and rebirth. These are the images which constantly keep coming. I think somebody has to.
Sir, 1 second. Lilac is a flower, sir. Lilac is a flower.
Pardon?
Lilac is a flower, sir.
Yeah, lilac is a flower, right?
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay, lilac is a flower. Lilac is a dominant symbol here, ma. Okay, just a second. Lilac is a flower. Yeah, I lost it. I'm just looking at the page number. Just let me know if the poem is in your books.
It's there,
Yes,
sir.
sir. Yes,
Right.
sir. We are
So are
having.
you following the, is it, are the stanzas numbered? Are they given the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 like that?
Yes, sir.
Sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now we are in stanza 5. Stanza
Yes,
5.
sir.
Okay. Can
16
somebody,
poems are there, sir.
pardon?
16 poems are there, sir.
Yeah, 16. 16 sections, 16 stanzas. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Right. The 14th is the longest. Okay. Right. Now turn to 6th section. Okay. The ever-returning spring symbolizes resurrection. Somebody read section 6, stanza 6, coffin that passes. Can anyone?
Can I, sir?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, sir. When lilacs last in the
No,
dooryard bloom.
no. Just a second. 6th stanza.
Okay, sir. I am reading the lesson name.
Ah.
Okay, sir. Coffin that passes through lanes and streets, through day and night, with the grey cloud darkening the land, with the pomp of the inlooped flags, with the cities wrapped in black, with the show of the states themselves as of crepe, wheeled women standing, with processions long and winding and the flame biers of the night, with the countless torches lit, when the silent sea of faces and the unbared heads, with the waiting depot, the arriving coffin and the somber faces. When bridges through the night, with the thousand voices rising strong and solemn, with all the mournful voices of the beggars poured around the coffin, the dim-lit churches and the shuddering organs were amid these youth journey, with the tolling bells' perpetual clang. Here, coffin that slowly passes. I give you my spring of lilac.
Sprig of lilac. Now see, coffin, dirge, the words that you need to be focusing on, dirge, coffin, tolling, shuddering organs, perpetual clang, the dim-lit churches, the crepe-veiled woman. Now, this is the funeral procession of President Lincoln. Beginning in Washington, it passes through, Maryland, Pennsylvania, Ohio, and then finally comes to Illinois, Springfield. So now the ceremony that is accompanying this particular train, where people await, and there is this public expression of grief. At the same time, there is, the pealing of the tolling of the bell. Now, bells, the church bells are rung. There is a peal of the, there is this ringing of the bells for happy occasions and also for a sad occasion like death. So, ringing the bell signifying death, the word that is used is toll, T-O-L-L. Tolling means ringing a death bell. It's also called knell, K-N-E-L-L. So now that's why Elegy written in a country churchyard, the poem by Thomas Gray. Now there is that the description of the curfew tolls the knell of the parting day. The focus is here on the knell or tolling. And the public expression of grief and love for Lincoln on one hand, and the poet's personal affection. He says, I give you my sprig of lilac. Because he plucked a sprig of lilac in the, third stanza. A sprig with its flower I break, and that sprig in stanza 6, he says, I give you my sprig of life. Okay? Now, and he says that his grieving is not only for you alone. Okay? Blossoms and branches green to coffins all I bring. For fresh as the morning, thus I chant a song. Meaning, from the particular death of President Lincoln, the poet is moving to all coffins. He says, stanza 7, please follow, stanza 7, not for you, for one alone, blossoms and branches green, to coffins all I bring. Now I bring this not only to the coffin of Lincoln, but to all coffins, meaning to death in general. Got the idea here? Right?
Yes, sir.
Right. Now,
Yes, sir.
just a second. Now, the second cycle begins with section 5, okay? 5 to 9. Now, cycle. This is it describes the journey as I was talking about, okay, through the natural scenery and industrial cities. Look at here now. This is through the cities and through the landscapes, both representing facets of American life, meaning both in the great cities and also the great natural landscapes of America. And the thrush song in section 4 is a prelude. What is a prelude? Is a hint, is a kind of an introduction, a prelude to the journey of the coffin which passes over the breast of the spring through cities, woods, wheat fields and orchards. But in the midst of life, we are in death. Now, it's a kind of a reference to the liturgical section from the Book of Common Prayer, the Anglican Book of Common Prayer. In the midst of life, we are in death. Okay, that is the section, cycle 2 till 9. Now, the third cycle is from 10 to 13. It is about the difficulty of finding words to express one's emotion. You should excuse the sounds coming because I am not in the campus now. How shall I sing? Can anyone read this for me, please, so that I can comment on this?
Sir, which stanza?
May I, sir?
Who wants to read?
Me, sir.
Okay.
Sir, which stanza? Hello?
He is asking to read the slide.
Okay, fine. Okay. The third cycle of the poem, 10 to 13. The poet wonders how he shall sing for the large sweet soul that has gone. How shall he compose his tribute for the dead one there I love? The pictures on the dead president's tomb, he says, should be of spring and sun and leaves, a river, hills, and the sky, the city, dense with dwellings and people at work. In short, all scenes of life. The body and soul of America will be in them. The beauties of Manhattan spires as well as the shores of Ohio and Missouri rivers. All the varied and ample land.
Thank you, Ma. Now, a little hint here. Now, when you are reading, T-O-M-B is tomb. Okay? Tomb, T-O-M-B is tomb. And then Ohio, the place name Ohio, and Missouri. Okay? Yeah. Now, sections 10 to 13, that is stanzas 10 to 13, the third cycle. It is about what can I say, okay, for the one who is gone. Now, some of you might remember Nehru's speech on All India Radio when Gandhiji was assassinated. Are you hearing? Are you able to listen to me? Okay. Excuse me. I don't know how to. Yeah. Right. Did you hear my question? Anyone can answer? What was my question?
Nehru's speech about
Exactly.
Gandhiji.
Right. Now, there also Nehru says that he doesn't know how to, okay, I do not know how to say and what to say because he is overcome by emotion and grief. Okay, that very famous speech, you can Google and listen to it. It could be on YouTube. Friends and comrades, the light has gone out of our lives and there is darkness everywhere. For our beloved leader, Bapu, as we call him, is no more. Okay, that's how it starts. Now, something that, I'm just drawing a parallel here. Difficulty of finding words to express grief. So that's why Lincoln is called a large, sweet soul. Large, sweet soul, meaning large in the sense Lincoln was large-hearted. He was big-hearted. He could accommodate many things, many views, many perspectives and points of view. So how can I find words to express my grief and love? Not only expressing grief and love, but also a celebration. Most of the time, in the obituaries, they are called to celebrate the life of somebody. It's not to mourn the death of somebody, but we use the words, a meeting to celebrate the life of so-and-so who died. Now, what will be the fit tribute to Lincoln? What would be the monument on the president's tomb? What would be there? Now, he says, the city, the rivers, the hills, and the body and soul of America will be in there. Both from the industrial cities, from Manhattan spires in New York, okay? New York is full of spires and towers, okay? And the shores of Ohio is a river also. Now, and Missouri, the great mighty rivers. So a fitting tribute to the varied and ample land, the varied and ample land. Just a second. Just a second. Can you hear anything?
No, sir.
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay, it's all right. I think just a second. Okay. Right. I was trying to present something. Yes. At least the presentation is still there, right? I messed up.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Right. Now, the varied and ample land, reference to the geography of America, the variety which I referred. And the fourth cycle, if you can turn to 14th stanza. Okay. Now we were talking about the symphonic structure of the poem. So this is a restatement of earlier themes. In a symphony, there is a restatement. So here again, we find a restatement of earlier themes and symbols of the poem. Can anyone read it for me, please? Who can read loud and clear?
Fourth cycle, sections 14 to 16 comprise a restatement of the earlier themes and symbols of the poem in a perspective of immortality. Like in a symphony, leitmotif, statement, contrasting melodies, recapitalization. As a bird sings, the poet sees a vision, and I saw askant the armies. He sees battle corpses and the derbies of all the slain soldiers. These dead soldiers are happy in their resting places, but their parents and relatives continue to suffer because they lost them. The suffering is not of the dead, but of the living. The coffin has now reached the end of its journey. The star, the bird, and the lilac join with the poet as he bids goodbye to Lincoln, his comrade, the dead and alive so well. The poet's realization of immortality through the emotional conflict of personal loss is a principal theme of this great poem, which is a symbolic dramatization of the poet's grief and his ultimate reconciliation with the truths of life and death.
Thank you. Now the last cycle, that is 14 to 16, the 16 now, if you look at the poem, the 14th section is the last section, the largest or the biggest one. Now this, a restatement of earlier themes and symbols, like in a symphony, and the bird, as the bird is singing, the poet sees a vision. Now, the bird song and the star align, and he sees a vision. What he sees, now I saw, just a second. Yeah. Section 15, okay? I saw battle corpses, myriads of them, and the white skeletons of young men. I saw them. You can read stanza 15 for the description of the fallen soldiers. So it is not an individual lament. It's not only for Lincoln, but all those who are dead in the Civil War, both those Northerners, and the Union and the Confederacy, that is the Southern states. And he saw battles and corpses and debris of all slain soldiers. Now, they are dead and they are beyond grief. Okay? They are beyond grief. But the ones who are left behind, meaning the parents and relatives, continue. It's a wonderful way of putting it. Can anyone read the last stanza in section 15? Last stanza. I saw battle corpses.
Can I, sir?
Yeah, go ahead.
I saw the debris of
Debris. Excuse me. It is not debris, it is debris.
Gokul, open door. Debris of all the slain soldiers of the war. But I thought they were not as was thought. They themselves were fully at rest. They suffered not. The living remained and suffered. The mother suffered. And the wife and the child and the musing comrade suffered. And the armies that remain suffer.
Thank
Sir,
you.
can we pronounce D or we can pronounce suffer?
Pardon?
Here, after that suffer, there is a apostrophe and D, no, sir. How we pronounce that word?
Suffered.
Okay.
Suffered. Okay? Yeah. Now, who is suffering here? Are the dead suffering or are the living suffering?
Living.
The living, yeah. So now the armies which are alive, the comrades who are surviving, the mother, the parents, the children, the wife, the husband, they are all suffering. So now the universal suffering, okay, and the grief that accompanies death is what the poet is talking about. Now, the coffin now has reached its end, and the star, the bird, and the lilac join with the poet as he bids goodbye to Lincoln, his comrade, the dead I loved so well. Now, who is the comrade? A comrade is?
Lincoln's
Now, Lincoln. Yeah, what is the meaning of the word comrade?
brother.
Brother, fellow worker, somebody who works with you, who shares. Okay, the word comrade actually means one who shares the same room. Okay, camera in Italian means room. So one who shares the same room is a comrade, and companion is somebody who breaks bread with you. Somebody who eats with you is called companion. Okay, companios. So here, Lincoln is seen as a comrade because the poet identifies himself with Lincoln's values, Lincoln's views about brotherhood, his belief in democracy. Okay. Now, for the comrade's mind. Now, again, there are also other comrades. Okay. Oh, comrade lustrous with silver face in the night. He says, comrades mine and I in the midst, and their memory ever to keep for the dead I loved so well. With the holders holding my hand, nearing the call of the bird, comrades mine. Now his camaraderie is also with the bird. There is a thrush and the star also. So now the poet's realization of immortality through the emotional conflict of personal loss is this principal theme. Okay. And for the sweetest, wisest soul of all my days and lands, he calls him the sweetest, wisest soul of all my days and lands. And this for his dear sake, lilac and star and bird twine with the chant of my soul. Chant, okay, or chant. Chant in the British pronunciation, chant in the American. Chanting or chanting of my soul. Now the lilac and the star and the bird, all of them have, aligned themselves with what is there in the heart of the speaker. There in the fragrant pines and the cedars dusk and dim. The trees, pine trees, very tall trees, okay? Cedars, also very tall, pine and cedar trees. Because pine and cedars, because this is a tree which is very much, wherever you go in America, you see pine trees. And they use pine wood for everything. They use wood very extensively. For everything they use wood, because wood is available there in plenty, not like it's not scarce there. Okay, they use in the playgrounds we use generally sand here, but they use the now the wood splinters. Okay, the small wood splinters are used in the playground, schools and all.